So, hello everybody to our fifth Fireside Chat. I'm Marvin Almutzain from Silver Classics. I'm the editor-in-chief.
Hi, I'm Kara Schuler. I'm the developmental editor of Silver Classics. And first of all, welcome to everyone who's joining us from around the world. Wherever you may be, we know we have people in a lot of different time zones, and we appreciate that you're all joining us live. Because we do have a lot of new viewers each time, we wanted to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves and the magazine very briefly. We mentioned last time that our next issue will be coming out soon, and indeed, it is coming out very soon in about a week.
Number 10.
Number 10, yeah. Who would have thought that we would get to issue 10? Everybody said we were crazy when we wanted to put out a print magazine about analog photography. So this is really great for us. And we want you all to be the first ones who get a glimpse about it, because we received our package yesterday. So some of you might recognize this photo. It's a fairly famous one from Helmut Newton. He is our featured artist, along with another artist in the same article who is named Aoife. And I wrote this article myself, and I have to say, I was at first, my feelings about it were kind of shades of gray. Honestly, Helmut Newton is not an easy person to write about because so much has already been said. But I think I found a very interesting viewpoint that not many people have gone into, and it's based in his early life in the Weimar Republic. And it's a double article with this woman, Aoife, who he studied with, or at least he apprenticed to her at her studio. And it's a very unusual take on his work, and I hope everybody's going to enjoy it. But I thought I'd just flip through a little bit here so you can see we have a lot of really great stuff. Different kinds of imagery. And as usual, a lot of gear, interesting articles.
Not that much gear. I mean,
well, some gear, some how-to. And Marwan's going to tell you about another article. That
by the way, just
yes.
This is here, Stay Positive. That's the Kodak ad. I found it really very funny at the end. So
Right. But I think you wanted to tell everybody about another article that was interesting in this issue.
Well, we had because today we're talking about motion picture film. Now nobody can see me.
Oh, nobody wants to see you. Exactly. They want to see the article.
We have today an episode of our Fireside Chat mainly dedicated to motion picture, partly, and we have something about Super 8 Polaroid. And that I take the chance to thank Ignacio Benedetti, by the way, who got us in contact with the guy who made that project. And Ignacio is also responsible for some of the panelists here, so we would like to thank him because he's really a warrior for the small format and 60 millimeter and 35 millimeter motion picture with his company in Spain.
Right. But we have more guests than usual, so I think we'll just move on and get on with the introductions. First of all, we have Michael Boxrocker, and you can see he has had quite a career, a lot of different things he's done, and very impressive list of achievements. We're very happy to have him here because as a cinematography teacher, he is still a champion of film, and he lets people know that you can still work on film, and that's something that we think is really great. But in speaking to Mitch in other occasions and also doing a little bit of Googling, I found out that some of the things we didn't list here were that he worked on the film Air Force One, and not the boring cinematography in the plane, the really great shots of Moscow lit up. And he also even worked on an episode of Heart to Heart back in the day. And I have to say, I remember that fondly from my childhood. So we are very happy to welcome Mitch.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks a lot for having me here as a panelist in this great lineup. It's a pleasure. And thanks for the nice introduction. Talking about these two projects you were mentioning, Air Force One, it was just 3 days of shooting, doing plates in Moscow, but it was quite interesting to shoot on the being on the red square and lighting up the red square, being there as well, and doing all the plates on the airport in Moscow and stuff like that. But I was a very, very small part on that. So I don't want to make a big thing out of it. And yes, Heart to Heart was actually my last part. The last job that I did as a first AC. We were shooting a 35mm 3-perf for a TV show. And it was a pleasure to work with an American-Hungarian mixed group there. And yeah, that was in 1994, I think, or 1995, long time ago.
The heydays of film.
The heydays.
How did you expect? How did you feel in 2020? I mean, that's how we do our fireside chats here.
Yes, 2020 was quite different from 1994. That's I'm sure. Yes, actually, it started good. Well, as you could see, I'm working as a cinematographer, but I'm working for Kodak I'm working in sales for the German-speaking area, for the German-speaking market, German, Austria, and Switzerland. And I'm a European training manager as well. And therefore, I know exactly what's going on in the German-speaking market, what projects are coming up. And it started good in 2020, and then everything went down because the production possibilities weren't that good. And most of the things were shifted to 2021 this year, which has started quite good already. And some of the projects, they were just postponed for I don't know when, so it depends. But at the moment, the situation looks good. People are shooting on film, features, commercials, music clips, short films, whatever, just name it. It's there. Very nice. 1635 throughout the whole.
And the training situation, training new camera people or getting people closer to film, because we noticed here in our Silbersalz Studio Lab that we get a lot of questions. People want to know, how does it work? They know the digital workflow, but is there a demand or an increasing demand from your side?
Oh, there's a demand, and actually I'm working together with rental companies, with rental houses, camera rental houses, and with film schools, and sometimes with labs. And therefore, I'm doing some workshops and hands-on, just on analog cameras sometimes, or just on the whole workflow regarding analog film. And yes, the people who are interested are either cinematographers who didn't learn on analog anymore, or just know something, but they want to know more. And it's everybody from very young cinematographers until experienced one who just wanted to get up some information again.
So you're just waiting at the moment that the lockdown is ending, and
yeah, unfortunately I had to shift the way of teaching a little bit into the digital way, like what we are doing, but it's difficult to teach analog film on a digital way. So it's I don't like this idea so much, but yes, I did some in 2020, and they're already planned. I have already 4 workshops planned for 2021 now. So we'll see what's going on.
You personally feel that there is definitely a demand. There are young people who are really searching for that medium and want to go into that format more and more.
Yes, I see that. And well, it's just sometimes when I speak to students or things, they say, well, we're interested because they say everybody knows how to shoot digitally, but we want to step out in the market. We want to prove that we know how to shoot analog, and this puts us in a unique selling position, which is important for them. And as well, knowing about analog is, yeah, it's important for people, and no different in ages, but especially the real young people from film schools, they are very much interested in
Well, we just also researched on servicing and Ariflex, and I heard that the waiting time is extremely long. So obviously, more and more people are trying to get this. The camera prices are increasing, which is the entire thing, like in still photography. Yeah. Well, we hope that we have this year the chance to do a workshop with you in the future. We just talked about that. So if someone is interested in the Frankfurt region or Germany wide, we are planning a workshop together with Mitch as an instructor and teacher. So yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Mitch. I think that was quite interesting. We'll later on go into the second round.
Thank you.
Yeah, our second panelist, Thomas Bergmann, he's a co-founder of the Silbersalz 35 company, and he is also a cinematographer. He works in an advertising branch, and he did, the first time when we met him was on the Photokina 2016, and he showed us a video from Playboy shower gel, which was really cool. And I was very surprised when I saw it. It looked really like big cinema on the big screen. That was definitely interesting. And they came with a very crazy idea at the time, developing film, shooting on 35mm, developing it afterwards. And at the end of the day, they could even show the first scan to the customer. We just thought, well, that's impossible. It is possible. And with Silbersalz 35, they did that as a, I think you're now a approved Kodak ECN2 lab. That's what I heard the last time, or is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Thomas, tell us about 2020 and your achievements.
Guys, thank you very much for having me. I'm on fire. Yeah, 2020. Basically, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we achieved in the last years. I'm co-CEO with Kirill, my colleague. Both of us, we are like DPs in our hearts, and we love filmmaking. So basically, we shoot films. We think, we write, we produce, we edit, and we're really crazy about look. And we started like 4 years ago shooting analog. I mean, I grew up, at film school, of course, film was everywhere, but it was like 4 years ago when young guns at our company started to buying gear again, and we started to do some shoots, and we really loved the results. So we really, to be honest, I was shocked. I was the digital guy, or I became the digital guy, and I was really shocked by the results and by the look and by the quality of what film can give us. And we really enjoyed the focus that you get from shooting analog, because you guys know this. We have to think first because you start the camera rolling, or you better should think first. And we have this bold vision to basically open our own lab, to do our own scanning. This is a couple of images what our place looks like. The machinery is self-built. So these days we offer motion picture lab services. We are a lab for our own DPs. We scan, we have our own color science. Yeah, and you're right, the last part of our story was Silbersalz 35. The idea here is to give back to the community and to make shooting analog photography easy, affordable, smart, for the next generation of shooters.
Well, obviously it works. We tried your film, and the concept you have is really amazing, especially as you are loading Vision 3 Kodak stock into canisters and 35mm canisters, and you're sending an entire package with the development and the entire scan to the customer. And in fact, it's just feel good package, and everything is done. And later on, people can just adjust it to their personal film look, which is amazing. And I think your demand, did you expect this high demand at the very beginning? There was a market for color film, but
to be honest, we were shocked. We started this project, we opened the website like 2 weeks later, and it felt like a project for like friends for DPs, from DP friends. And we were really shocked by the demand and the love we got from the community. We learned a lot because we are filmmakers, and we're not in the B2C area. And we learned a lot about photography, your community, topics like negative return, stuff that is interesting and key for photographers. Yeah, it was a fun journey. And today it's an honor to work for photographers from DPs from all around the world.
Especially as a color film alternative, where I mean I think the demand is higher than most color films are available. So that's definitely a wonderful niche.
Maybe we could show some of the images that have been made with your films, because I think those are also beautiful.
Yeah, I think Andreas has there a kind of, So maybe you can say something about, or maybe Mitch also can say something about what makes Vision 3 so special as color material.
Thomas, up to you. What do you think? You have.
I mean, to be honest, Vision 3 is the last basically state-of-the-art chemistry and emulsion, and combined with ECN2 processing and a good lab, the results are amazing. The dynamic range is huge. You have tungsten and daylight stalks available in 2 spices each. Yeah, and it's made for professional film work, so it's quite durable. The best you can get when it comes to emulsions, actually.
Something goes wrong. Oh yeah, okay, now we got it. Okay. Andreas.
Yes, we have to thank Andreas and Ludwig, who are working behind the scenes for us, because that means we don't have to be trying to push these buttons at the same time as we're talking to you. So thank you for putting up the slides and everything. Yeah. But I think it's amazing how beautiful these pictures look, and they do have a really cinematic quality to them that it's difficult to explain exactly why they have that quality so much more than other film stocks, but I love it.
You also offer bypass bleach process, I think. That's a possible option you can order from you?
Yes, you basically offer everything a lab can offer, like pushing, pulling, bleach bypassing.
Yeah.
But you better do some testing before. I mean,
that's right.
Bleach bypass, it's fun, but you should better know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Thomas. I think that was a very nice introduction, which brings us now to another pioneer of a film, especially a pioneer in the analog resurgence. So
yeah, absolutely. Our good friend Bellamy Hunt, who is joining us very late in the day from Tokyo. Bellamy was really instrumental in helping us get started. Without his promotion of our magazine when we started our Kickstarter, I'm pretty sure we would have fallen on our faces. So we owe him a huge debt of gratitude. He was very kind. We met him at the last Photokina, which was also the last Photokina, unfortunately. It was just a real joy, and we're so happy to have him here. So Bellamy, thank you for joining us in the middle of the night from Tokyo, and tell us a little bit about how you're doing, how your film's doing. Oh, we can show you an interesting advertisement that we have in the next issue.
Yeah, the new package also. Yes. That's what we noticed.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me amongst such illustrious guests. I feel I'm wondering what I'm doing here a little bit, really. It was really great to meet you guys at Photokina the last Photokina. I've been, I guess, championing analog. I don't like calling it analog, film photography. I've been championing film photography for the last 10, 15 years. I've been running JCH, the Japan Camera Hunter website, for it's actually 10 years this year. So 10-year anniversary this year. And it's been great. It's been great until 2020. Everything was going smoothly. We had some big plans, there was a lot going on, and I could feel a real groundswell and this renaissance that people talked about, which I'd been drumming on for the last 10 years. People were starting to take notice, and on social media we were starting to get a lot of real attention from big celebrities and DOPs and you know, directors and all sorts. And it was cool, you know, what's his name? The guy who directed the recent Star
I think
Wars.
he had your
my
t-shirt.
t-shirt.
J.J. Abrams,
Yes,
yeah.
I think I saw
Abrams,
that.
I keep on thinking of John Favreau because he's just better. But well, the Mandalorian, come on. But you know, it was going so well, and we had a lot of plans, and we had a lot of things we wanted to do, and we were really noticing this sort of community spirit coming together. And then 2020 happened, and yeah, everything went a bit sideways for us, because especially I run JCH from Japan, and the primary business is selling film and selling cameras, and you can't do that when you can't ship anything. So that kind of put a spanner in the works and left us thinking, oh God, we might not make it to the end of this year, you know, because people were cutting back on, you know, luxuries, and a $10 roll of film and a $2,000, $3,000+ camera is certainly a luxury for a lot of people. So we, you know, knuckled down and diversified and looked at other ways to you know, promote film and still stay in business and still keep the staff paid, because I'm very proud of myself. I managed to keep the staff paid for the whole year. And so we worked on new things. We started promoting younger photographers. We started working, pushing more books, pushing more new techniques, you know, looking for new products that people were selling. Previously, we were very much, this is what we want to sell, and this is what we will promote, because mainly we're selling it. And then now it's become more of a, we're going to promote everybody's if we can. You know, we want the community to come together, and that's really important for us. That's how we will weather this storm. And it's done all right for us. We've managed to get through 2020. We were very fortunate in Japan as well, because we didn't have really what you guys had in terms of lockdowns and in terms of infection rates. So we were very fortunate that we were actually able to go about our day-to-day business. And once we'd figured out a new way of shipping, we were, you know, back on it. So yeah, but we focused a bit more on the website and focused a bit more on actually interacting and getting people interested in film photography by asking new photographers to be involved, and people to submit their work and you know, become part of the community. So 2021, this is our 10-year anniversary. We've got a few things we're going to do. I'm not going to tell you what they are. Sorry, not yet. But there's going to be some stuff this year which might be quite exciting, I think, for everybody. I hope, provided we can actually make it, because factories are still going in and out of production. It took me a year to get more stock of street pan. It's a real headache. So yeah, but it's been good.
Well, it sounds at least promising. So
For the future, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you've managed to hang on this year. I know it's been a struggle in so many ways, as for many people, but you know, good on you for keeping up.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we could get, well, I wanted to make sure that I could ensure my staff were paid. I didn't want them laid off. I didn't want anybody laid off. And so, yeah, it was kind of knuckle down, and it was an incentive. You know, I had an accident at the start of last year, and it hurt myself, and I had to stop writing for Silver Grain Classics, but that actually gave me a bit of a kick and turned me into a bit of a health nut. So it's given me a positive spin. I feel like there's going to be something, you know, something good is going to happen this year.
That's kind of what we hope the theme is going to be for everybody, that we'll all find a way to make something positive after what everybody's been through in 2020.
Yeah. We hear from a lot of people that they do invest into the business, and I think that is also promising. There must be something coming out.
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah, that's definite. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you had.
Oh no, that's definite. People have been reinvesting into the industry
Yeah,
and into
right, yeah.
businesses. People have been actually focusing on building a steady foundation, as opposed to, it was a bit shaky before, and now it feels a lot more solid.
Thank you, Bellamy, for that. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk later. I'm sure there's some more interesting things later on in the second part, which brings us, especially investment, brings us to Omnimago in Germany. We have here the managing director, Mr. Fries. And Omnimago recently scanned the first ever directed movie from 1896. So kind of an old footage. They have also the permission to work with explosives because especially the nitrate film is kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And yeah, well, they have amazing technology in their facilities. Plus, they also added Super 8 and smaller formats like 16 millimeter in their portfolio. So yeah, from 16 millimeter, from Super 8 to 70 millimeter, you can scan everything there.
Hello, thank you first of all to be here, and that's a panelist. I'm very glad to see you all negative, but with positive thinking, and that's what we look for the future. Thank you for the introduction. And yes, we think film is life, and film is the best what we can work with at the moment. And that was in the past. I'm more than 20 years now in the company, and I can really say there's a lot of things to say, of positive things, sure. And with 40 people, we are based in Ingelheim. That's near Frankfurt. Ingelheim is more known about the red wine or chemical industry, but our company is still there. And we have another small branch in Leipzig where we are doing tape digitization. And that we see always it's limited. Tape is always limited, or digitization is limited on the resolution, what you think. And so coming from Super 8, that is so interesting. And if you see the results we are scanning today, we are more than glad to offer these services up to other formats, 16, 35, and so on. And so the combining with the new technology and the old, sometimes we have very old kind of film material, but this combination is a very, very good combination, and it is passion. Film is passion at the end. Film is life. And I think analog and digital are a good combination, but if you shoot on film, you are always free for the future. And that is a very, very strong idea. So we have a lot of
some slides that we could, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think you brought us some slides. I'm sure people would be interested to see
your premises,
what
because
you have in
the
there.
technology there is amazing. We visited that place and yeah, it was stunning.
Yeah, okay, that's a look to the company. So 40 people are working there. So everything is, we can store, you can see outside the containers where we put as well nitrate material. And that is not easy to store. You have to take care on that. The typical way of handling film is to see if it's an old type of material, if it's scratches or something. So handle it carefully and to bring it to the best result at the end. And we can do that with different kind of material and scanners. So that is a Super 8 or normal 8 scanner, and that's a typical view into one of our rooms where we do color correction and things like that. That is Super 8. That is now 65 and 70 with where we can scan up to 10, 15 K if it's needed, sure. But we can work with 35 as well. Later can tell something about that. That's our Scanity with Wetgate. Wetgate is a little bit like playing records with kind of wet liquid. So it brings out some scratches and things like that from old movies. but we are talking about 70, 80 years old movies. There you can see a little bit impressions of the kind of wet gate. It's a high technology, but we need it, and it's very effective and very good to bring out any damages of that kind of material. And sure, then we are going to do color corrections, things like that, to bring out the look, what was made in foreign time or when the film was shot. That's our small cinema in a 4K laser projection, where we're doing color correction as well for old movies as well as new productions. So everything what is shot on film, we can see, we can feel, and we can bring in that what all people started to work with when it was shot, the film. How is the scenery, how is the colors and things like that. That is a wonderful work, and we love it to do that.
I remember that we had the chance. I think your theater, your small theater for color grading is quite new. I think you opened it last year, and it was stunning to see the result in comparison to a digital camera, which was you showed us the difference between the grain of film and then the digital image, which was extremely crisp and clean, but suddenly you saw film and you just said, oh, it's alive. And I just can recommend anybody just to look at something like this, and you will really understand what is the magic of film. But I think that is also a part we're going to talk in the second part. So we just come to our next panelist. That is
last but definitely not least, Antonio Rasura is joining us from Kodak. And maybe I should mention that we did have Kodak in our first Fireside Chat, but some people don't quite understand that Kodak Motion Picture is a different company than Kodak Alaris. And so this is not a repeat company, but it's a different Kodak. So Antonio will not be able to answer any questions about Portra or
can I push Kodak Gold 200?
Exactly. So Antonio is definitely, he has an amazing depth of knowledge about the labs, and also he's a technical specialist for archiving and preservation of motion picture films, and he is got his fingers very deep in the pie of Kodak motion pictures. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing what he'll have to say about how 2020 was and what he thinks is going to happen in the future.
Oh.
So welcome.
Am I good? Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Karis and Maren and Silver Growing Classics for putting today's webinar together. It's an incredible privilege to share a panel with such a distinguished group of people. And of course, we're joined live by a whole group of people out there. So welcome. And I hope today's conversation is going to be engaging and we'll all learn something new. Yes, I'm Antonio Rasura. I am the Director for Services for Kodak Motion Picture Group. I primarily look after the 3 labs that we have built and set up. We have one in Atlanta, Georgia, one in New York City, and the other one in London. We cater to all film types. So from Super 8 all the way up to 65mm, we process it. And more importantly, we cater and service all filmmakers. It's important to note, whether you're the novice putting film into a camera for the very first time, or you're the seasoned cinematographer behind the latest blockbuster, we're here to support you with that. And as Kara said, I also specialize in our archive films. And it's important to note that there are 3 categories of film for Kodak. We have our origination films, we have our intermediate and distribution films, and then just as important are our archive films. And it's important to remember that film has had 130, 140 years of proving itself, of being a stable format. Today, we don't really have a solid foundation for long-term digital preservation. So I hope the conversation will lean into this a little bit, and we can spend a little bit more time on that.
Yeah.
I think that about covers it. I'm curious to get the conversation going, so perhaps I'll hand over to you, Karis.
Certainly.
Well,
I was just going to say that in an article I wrote a few issues ago, I talked to a young director who had quite a bit of success with his film. It was shot on film and then digitized for release. But then he said he was so relieved when he had the projection copy made and sent off to the Library of Congress, because then he didn't have to worry about keeping those discs spinning. And that at some point there was going to be some problem with the disc, and then his film would be gone. And I know that this was I think Toy Story was almost lost. It was one of those strange things, or it was one of the first really purely digital films, and things that haven't been really preserved on film, they are in danger of being lost. You always think that film is something, oh, you see all these degraded, vinegared film canisters, and you think, oh, we have to get everything digitized. But it's just as important to get the things that were digital onto film, so that we have a way of preserving things. I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories like that.
There have been so many disaster stories, and we've discussed this in the past. There's possibly going to be a great period in time where there's literally going to be a black hole in our understanding of how to preserve all digital born content. We've had, as I said, 130 years. We can date back, and Peter has a great example of this, date back films that were shot in the 1890s, you said, Peter, and still extract an image. Today, something that may have been shot 5 or 6 years ago, digital, may not be around right now, let alone in 20 years' time, depending on the format. The obsolescence of digital storage media is incredible. We don't need to prove that film is around. We've already got the evidence. I think it's vital that if we want to preserve our content, if we want to preserve the art for future generations, we're going to have to consider film as the
what is interesting, especially for a lot of our readers, is that the nowadays match between still photography and cinematography, especially as we had around 2000, I think the majority was still photography production. And I think things shifted now because of Hollywood and motion picture industry, that huge amount of film production is done in the motion picture field. The lucky thing is that most 35mm cameras are technically able to be loaded with motion picture film. Is that something where you could say something about that, maybe?
Yeah, and I think Silver Grain, I think what Thomas is doing is testament to that. It is true that the divide between motion picture film and stills film is perhaps not as great as it used to be. I mean, we're still talking about the film as the medium, and the medium working through the hands of the artist. Today, we're seeing a lot more use of film in perhaps unique situations. And again, testament to what Thomas said at Silbersalz, by loading camera negative into stills cassettes and making use of the technology that lies in the camera negative, the extreme latitude, is something that has become an incredible movement. We've seen more filmmakers wanting, or at least say novel filmmakers wanting to touch film and wanting specifically to touch motion picture film. This is a great entry to market. Just as Super 8 is a great gateway into other formats, it's hugely accessible. And then for the likes of those that are looking to do home developing, we're making it more accessible. I think that's important.
Also, maybe the development of Super 8, because I think especially Super 8 is a format that's a very good entry-level format, especially for students. And in fact, it is the small format, but it has all the genes of the big one.
Super 8 has touched so many new filmmakers in so many new ways, but it's also being used by seasoned filmmakers. We're seeing Super 8 dovetail into shoots that we never perhaps expected 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, this was specifically designed and aimed at the consumer market. Today, I think Super 8 is running thread through so many areas.
And it's, as I said, about the increase of the sales of Super 8.
I was just about to say that, and I think this is a great example that excluding 2020, which I think we've all come to realize is a skewered year. excluding 2020, we've had double-digit increase in the use of Super 8 since 2016. Not single-digit, double-digit. It is incredible the amount of people that are finding cameras. And I think we talked about this a little too. The existence of a 30, 40, 50-year-old camera is immediately updated to the very latest technology the moment you drop a new cassette, a new cartridge, a new roll of film into it.
Camera is a good point. Would you like something about that?
Segue into the camera. I have no doubt that that was going to come up. Look, it is no secret that bringing a Super 8 camera to market is incredibly challenging. And, you know, perhaps without going through some of the difficulties of the early in-development difficulties that we had, progress has been slow but steady. I think what we were not expecting was the impact and the additional setbacks that 2020 would have. But with all good things, there's a silver lining, and I'm incredibly pleased to say that the development, the camera is in its final stage of development. Whilst I would love to be able to be the person here to make some sort of worldwide announcement, I cannot. There is one coming up. Please stay tuned. Follow us on our website, subscribe to our newsletter.
And we will report about it, by the way. Just
there you go.
Okay. Well, I think that was a great introduction. It's now time for the second part of our nice discussion here, where we would like to get a kind of interactive discussion between the panelists. So is there anything what you would guys, would like to share as a question to another one, or do you have any ideas about what you would like to ask, for example, Peter or Bellamy or whatever?
Maybe I can start with one comment and maybe one question. To shot on film means you store later your film in your home or in your lab or whatever, and that costs a kind of money. But if you shot digital, you shot a lot of more material, and then you have to take care about the digital material. And that is, if you look for a time, maybe 10 years, 20 years, that costs much more than to shot on film. If we get some, so Antonio said before, when we do preservation, and you open a can, which is maybe 20 or 30 years old, not too old, then you have very often, it's like new. And the box was just stored and nothing happened. So my question is, are you looking, Antonio, for development of new film for the long-term storage? Is it more thinking today that we have experience in long-term usability of film, but do you look more to that topic as well today?
We do, in terms of the platform that I look after in our long-term preservation of film. I mean, we've had films in this category for a long time. Have we done additional development work? We have, and perhaps I'll touch on to that just slightly. But you know, when we talk about long-term preservation, our color dyes in our intermediate films have been proven to have at least 100 years of dye stability, if you like. Our black and white platform is incredible. We're talking about 500 years. Now, I know it's difficult for us to establish this without doing some incredible work around things like Arrhenius longevity testing, accelerated age testing. But we have more recently worked with a Norwegian company and developed a film that is specifically designed for long-term data storage. That film, but based on the same technology that we have in our image color, our black and white image films, has now been proven, although not by us. I mean, we've established that it has up to 500 years of stability. They have taken this film and determined that they can get read back capabilities. We're now edging toward the 700-800 year mark, and they believe that they will probably get to 1,000 years. I mean, this is incredible. We're talking about permanence, a forever ability to go back to that piece of film. And today, you know, we do not use acetate film products anymore for long-term preservation. It is all coated on inert polyester. So vinegar syndrome is a thing of the past. We still control the conditions by which we need to store the film, but you know, there, as I said earlier, there is absolutely no proven digital platform without some form of you know, platform to platform migration that will exceed the value that film offers.
Which brings me to another point. I mean, one thing is the storage, but on the other side is the aesthetic. I've seen, I mean, Bellamy and we have Bellamy and Thomas here. We're both selling a film with a certain aesthetic, where we have on one side a film that's great for street photographers using their Leicas and just shooting in black and white and having a still photo. The other side, we have that color cinematography look in on the Vision 3 material. I've seen some of your projects where you're working for customers in advertising, Thomas. Maybe you can say something about that, especially in terms of the costs of the material and the cost of projects.
I mean, we are very happy that we have customers that trust us as a production company and as artists. So to be honest, we don't debate shooting analog with our customers. I know this is quite of a luxury. I think as a producer, from a production company, it's a completely different way of thinking, but in general, shooting analog is not more expensive. Of course, you have to think first, as a DP, as a director, you tend to be more prepared. Maybe you do some more rehearsal during shooting, but then, I mean, the cameras, basically we do own the cameras, and you can get very high-end cameras for a cheap price these days.
So you think that the film price is definitely not really the major thing to think about?
No.
How about you, Bellamy? I mean, when you just think about the situation of selling a film,
it's a bit different. It's almost the reverse for still film photography at the moment. The prices for cameras has gone through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean through the roof. It's tripled, quadrupled in some cases. You're talking cameras that I would buy 5-6 years ago for $1,000, going for $5,000-$6,000 now. You know, which prices them out of the range of the majority of people. But that is, in some respect, a little bit of brand chasing. You know, people who have to have that Leica camera, they have to have that certain camera that Kendall Jenner or whoever was, you know, shooting with, where there is actually still an awful lot. There's millions and millions and millions of perfectly usable film cameras out there available on the market in people's wardrobes, in grandma's loft or whatever. They are there and they're working and they're still usable. The film has become more expensive, a lot more expensive, and it is pricing some people out of the market. And that's, I think, an economies of scale thing. You know, there's only so much film that is being manufactured now because of the demand, and so the price is obviously higher. Also, the materials have become more expensive. The shipping has become more expensive. The taxes have become more expensive, but nobody's earning any more money. We could segue into a completely different conversation there, but I'm finding, you know, I've been very careful for as long as I possibly can, to not raise the price of street pan until I absolutely couldn't bear it any longer and I had no choice. And even then it was very, very small. I tried to keep it at a minimum. It also depends on the region. There is, sad to say, some majority of distributors are fantastic, but there are some distributors out there in certain regions who are just straight greedy. And they're, you know, when I go to a store in Tokyo and I pick up a roll of CineStill and it's $35 for a roll of CineStill, how is that? You know, that's not feasible. You know, I can't put that in my camera. That's ridiculous. Whereas, you know, if I go onto their website, I go to, or I speak to the guys, it's $15 a roll. So I think, you know, and this is why I've been sort of pushing the idea that people, the more people that shoot film, the more people that are taking pictures, and the more people who get involved with the community, the more people who buy film. So hopefully the price will become a bit more bearable. You know, and
it's always an important thing that new products just pop up, especially that people can see, look, there's something happening. There are more brands available, and I think that is one of the positive effects.
Yes.
There's also a relation, I think, between the motion picture film industry and the still film industry that not everybody is always so aware of. How close we came to losing both actually a while ago, and we were all propped up by, you know, a few big names in Hollywood who got together and said, hey, no, I need to have this available to shoot on.
Yeah.
And because those people went and threw their weight around at the right moment, they pretty much saved us all. And
their passion, their passion really kind of came through. And you know, I mean, I'm not trying to, but some of them are customers, and they are still shooters as well, and they are really, really vocally passionate about it, and their you know, support engendered more support from people who are, so, you know, the average person on TikTok or Instagram doesn't really know who some of these directors are, probably doesn't or doesn't care, but they do know who some of the actors in their films are.
Mm-hmm.
And the actors in their films pick up a camera and go, you know, seen at the gala with a Contax G2 or something. That's it. Everybody's, whoa, I've got to start shooting film.
right.
You know, which is brilliant, fantastic. Bring it on. You know.
Well, that was also the idea about this round, to merge that together, because I don't know if maybe I'm saying something wrong, Antonio, but I assume that a lot of chemicals that are used for the typical still films like Portra and whatever are very similar to the one you use for Vision 3. And I think that the amount of, if there is more Vision 3 produced, it will also have a positive effect on our still photography, because manufacturers are producing ingredients for the still photo film. Is that true, or can you say that? Does that make sense?
That is absolutely true. I mean, the chemicals that go in there, and you know, Bellamy, you are correct. The chemicals that go into film have become more expensive. You know, resources, worldwide movement of goods and services into the factory has made it difficult. But you are also correct, Maren, to state that, you know, the more we consume film, the more the overall cost of film comes down. And that's all film, whether it's film that's going into your camera or the long-term preservation film that's going onto a shelf to store that precious content for another 500 years. You know, putting a network of services together is also important. I mean, moving stuff around is difficult, getting it to the consumer. We also struggling with the consumer having access to enough laboratories. We have seen, as the years have gone by, with the decline in release printing, the number of labs, accessible labs, has declined, making it a further challenge. So, you know, again, this is the space that we're in. We're looking to support the industry with that. Another fascinating thing, and perhaps I don't mean to swing the conversation, but, you know, Peter, we touched lightly on the importance of scanning at high resolution. Something that often gets missed when we talk about film and the latest digital technology. You know, we hear of things like 4K, 8K, that movement to high-end, high-resolution delivery. The wonderful thing about something that was shot in the 80s is that it can be brought to the very latest digital delivery technology of today because of the scanning technology that's in there. And you know, you touched on that, perhaps hand over at this point. We're finding things in film, in images that we never saw 20 years ago because we were in a standard definition world, or we were printing it. Today we can dig into those pictures and find incredible bits of information.
I mean, Peter, 15K is craziness, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. We are scanning at the moment from 35, from negative, from the 80s. That's music, classical music edited in negative, and it's scanned in 8K. So the question is 8K in this kind of 80 years from the 80s shot? And sure, it is not. But if you compare 8K with 4K, there's something between. And our customer, that is, at that point, it's from Japan. They don't care about this. They don't discuss about that. They say, we want to have it in 8K. There's no doubt about that. And so they are looking for this. And it's absolutely, I can agree what Antonio said, or Thomas, what you said, but to go up and to a higher resolution is always a good thing regarding to the film. If you have a very old movie, which is positive and it's in a very bad condition, then you don't need an 8K scan, that is for sure. But you have the opportunity, you have the chance to do that. And that is, from my experience today, that's a very important thing, even if you shot on Super 8. If we get today's Super 8 movies, which are very old, 20 years old, 30 years old, the customers are very astonished what they see in the result. And sure, there's grain and so on. But I think if you compare it with a hard disk, maybe a hard disk, which is 10 years old or 15 years old, maybe it's not running, you have no chance maybe to save that content on the hard disk or for a lot of money. And to scan a Super 8 film is, if you compare that with a hard disk, cheap. So we think the resolution 8K of the discussion is important to discuss about things or things which is nonsense. But our experience at the end is a scan with 8K. In Japan has NHK, the public channel in Japan has an 8K channel. So there are not a lot of viewers maybe, but they want to keep this resolution for this kind of music. And I think that's a very important statement.
Especially knowing that the 8K scan comes from Germany.
Hey, well done.
Well, I'm afraid that we have to watch the time a little bit. I just love to sit around and talk with you guys, but we also wanted to get to some of the questions that have been coming in from the people who are listening to us around the world. And what we were just talking about ties into one of them. Somebody asked Peter at Omnimago, do you scan Super 8 up to 12K? And if you do, specifically, what hardware would you use to do that? Do you have a Scanity upgrade for Super 8, or how would that even work?
I have to talk with the manufacturer, but I'm very sorry to say that's not possible at the moment. We can scan Super 8 up to 4K. That's the largest scale at the moment. Thank you for the question, but it's hard for the manufacturer to develop such a machine or to bring it into this range. So I'm afraid that will be not possible in the next year, maybe from now. I think that's the answer.
Okay.
But if there's a demand, theoretically, it's possible.
Technically, it's no problem to scan with the Scanity up to 4K, and that's a very, very good quality. But to go more from 4K up to any other, I think that's for Super 8, it's too much. But there's a demand on 2K up to 4K.
Right.
That's.
I know that my son will be very disappointed to hear that. As you know, Peter has been nice enough to scan some of his films and 16 millimeter for us.
I think Super 8 and 4K is a good combination.
Yes, we certainly have to be able to use anything more than that so far. But that brings me to a question for Mitch. When these students that you have, do you see an increased interest in analog? I mean, beyond your own passion for it, do you see students coming in who are aware of this analog resurgence, or is that something that you kind of bring to them?
It's actually both of it. Well, I just come around from the other side. Maybe it's always a production thing. Yeah, the students on one side, they are interested in that sometimes because they come to me and say, our school starts stopping teaching on analog, or they think about doing that, and which is a mistake in my opinion, and in theirs as well, because they said not learning on analog it would be crucial for them to miss it. Eh? And from production side, it is like that sometimes people coming towards me said, the production is telling us it's too expensive to shoot on film. Can you give us any kind of arguments that we can convince them to do that? And which brings me to one of the most important points, because line producers sometimes, it might sound a little bit crazy, but they're stubborn and say film is too expensive, it's old style, it's out, we don't know how to handle that anymore, and therefore they just ignore it and say it's too expensive. But what they forget about is when shooting on film, it's a different discipline on a set, and people are more pointed, more aware of what they are doing. And I'm just a producer, a good friend of mine, he had a hybrid project, digital and analog. And he came back after the show and said the days when he had an analog camera on a set were the cheapest days for him and the most effective, because there were no overtime. Everybody was totally focused, and they were planning. And what Thomas said before, there was more thinking ahead than hunting and gathering for pictures and doing randomly shoot in every angle, whatever. Because it's important for the people that they should know what they want, and especially they should know what they don't need for telling a story. And that brings the point even more. What are we doing when we're shooting a film? We're telling a story, and we should be aware that this creative process, in my opinion, should be on set, yeah, and not just collect.
We have a problem.
We've lost your audio, Mitch. I don't know if everybody lost your audio, but we
Hello?
just didn't.
Test.
Test.
I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, now
Yes, we got you back.
Okay.
Now you're gone.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm
Technical
sorry.
problems. Okay.
I think we just have to shut you. And what's the next question about?
Oh, we have a question from Ignacio, who is apparently joining us today as a viewer. He has a question for Antonio. Long-term preservation of camera film is worrying him, and he's wondering if there's going to be a possibility for Kodak to produce camera film both for photography and mixed-in-picture with a polyester base.
That's a great question. First of all, I think, to put it into context, I shouldn't be here pointing to any concerns with the long-term preservation of triacetate films. It's just that we know from experience, from seeing some of the stuff that we've unearthed that's over 50, 80, 100 years old, if stored incorrectly, triacetate has the potential to pick up things like vinegar syndrome and degrade. Properly stored, we've seen, and Peter, you just alluded to this earlier, nitrate that has survived over 100 years to be in pristine condition. So I think it's more related to the storage conditions and educating people on how to store film properly, and we can touch base with me afterwards, and I'm happy to put that together. The second part of your question, a polyester base has been available for motion picture film Many years ago, Kodak do not have a current platform, but we were using it in high-speed cameras. Photosonics cameras were once running on polyester-based films. The concern there is that polyester is incredibly tough. And when there is a problem, it is more likely to do more damage to the camera than it will to the film stock. I mean, acetate has the potential that if there's a problem, a mechanical transportation problem, the film is going to give first. On a polyester-based support, it's likely to be the camera. And unfortunately, the reality is there are not that many camera builders out there anymore. Manufacturers building cameras, finding the parts are going to be difficult. So I think we need to treasure, as Bellamy said earlier, look at the price of stills cameras over the past 5 years. I think we need to preserve the equipment that we've got. So I hope that covers some of it, but it's going to come down to properly stored acetate is a stable long-term film support.
Well, there's another question that's about formats. I think we have also medium format photographers asking a question to Bellamy and Silbersalz. Is your films or both your films available as 120 or 220 option?
Well, Street Pan is available as 120 already, has been almost since inception. 220 we looked at. It's quite expensive to do, and the demand is not that high. We also looked at doing bulk rolls. Bulk reels, bulk rolls, whatever you want to call them. Again, it's a case of demand, and it's not like I'm a big guy. It's just me. Well, it's me and my staff, but I have to bankroll this. It's not something that I've got huge investors with deep pockets to help me do. So it's on the cards when I have enough money to do it. It is an option that is available to make, and if we have the money, we will make it, as well as sheet film. You know, if I had the money, I would not have any issue with making large format and medium format sheets. It's just a case of having enough money to do it.
Yeah. You know?
Thomas?
At the moment, we're doing 35 only, and we would love to do medium format. But we're not only doing the film, we do the service, we do the processing, we do the scanning, and it's not around the corner, I have to say. It's a matter of money. I mean, we're talking to Kodak about it, but it's a matter of manpower, and
yeah,
it's not a small project you guys talking about. So
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions here for Peter. One is there a way to see an example of the scans that you do? And another one is, do you have a service for private individuals that would be a restoration of Super 8 film in the same way that feature films or other things have water spots and damage that they're really restored? Do you have a service like that available for Super 8?
Yes, for Super 8, we have very different kind of customers, private customers and customers which shot, let's say, on a professional way on Super 8, and it depends on the material. We can always have a look into the material, and then we look what has to be done to maybe to do a digital restoration, but that is always a very close communication between the customer and what we are doing. So everyone has his own side on a picture. So Michael knows that, everyone, Thomas knows that. So what kind of colors are nice, what is the sense of this shot, and so on. So we can do that, and we offer that. To the second questions, example of scans, that is, we can always show as example of scans. One of this is the 8K scans, which are digitally restored in Tokyo by a company in Tokyo, and will then on air from NHK. It's just running on March, the next one. And if we show examples, we have to, because we are not a production company, we have to talk with our customers to allow it to show some scenes or something, but that is possible. And we will have soon a new website, so you can see some examples, but just what's possible.
Way an interesting point for an article. Maybe we just do a kind of comparison, because we just bought a few weeks ago a kind of one of these cheap scanners, which you could get from China for a few €100, and we tried it. The first thing we discovered, it scratches your film, and second, we don't know what the result was, but it looks very strange. So, so the money would have better been invested in someone who knows what he's doing. So,
Quite true.
I think that would be an interesting example, just as an article. Maybe we can talk about that.
But maybe one more thing is just from today's side. If you have shot on the film 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you can do a lot of things today with the electronic possibilities. Yeah. If you do a lot restoration work or not, doesn't matter. The result is that what we talked about, the art, the image, and things like that. And I think that is what film gives you today. If you shot, then you have a wide range of resolution and kind of art. So that is the most important thing, I think.
That's a wonderful statement to wrap up on, and I'm afraid that we're kind of to the end of our time. Also, we're getting to Bellamy's bedtime, I think, in Tokyo.
It's not like I'm aged. But I do have to get up early because I'm going to go for another long run.
Thank you, Bellamy. We're just getting. I think we just finished here now.
But I think Thomas wanted to say something.
Yeah.
One last.
I'd like to add one point to what Michael was saying. We see really a young generation of filmmakers shooting analog, and I think it's a very good idea to shoot analog because analog is a perfect testing ground. I mean, as an artist, as a DP, even if you will shoot digital later, it's the perfect learning ground if you have like 4 different sensors, if you like, and you feel the duty on your as a DP to come up with something that looks genius. And you really have to know your material. You have to do testing, collaborate with your lab. So I think it really teaches you the craftsmanship of cinematography and photography.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that we find ourselves saying a lot, not just in a cinematography edition here, but also photography. That no matter what you end up shooting on, if you don't know how to shoot on film, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to make really great pictures digitally. So yeah, young people. This is it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Get in the dark room, seriously.
Yeah, totally. We wanted to say that our next issue of Silver Grain Classics Fireside Chat is going to be on March 6th. And it will be, well, for now, it'll be the last one. We're not saying we won't do any more in the future, but they won't be every 2 weeks then. And we have a really fantastic lineup. We are so excited about it. Not only Oliver Blom, who has been exhibiting at the Museum of Modern Art and just does really crazy, beautiful stuff. Nick Carver, who I think some of you may recognize from his online presence. And I am just thrilled that we're going to have David Burnett, who is photojournalist extraordinaire. He has photographed every American president since FDR. He was there when Apollo 11 launched. I mean, he is just, he's amazing. And I'm so happy that he's going to join us next time. So please don't miss that, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us from all over the world. And thank you very much to our panelists for joining us today too. And it's been so much fun talking to you.
And good night, Bellamy.
And good night.
I might have another beer. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye.